One of the aspects of a face-to-face class that I miss the most is the ability to use the whiteboard to diagram ideas. So for this video, I've instead diagrammed 4 crucial concepts for understanding stories about heroes on white paper, as I would have on the whiteboard. One crucial concept to remember when reading stories about heroes is that traditionally they have been meant to provide models of virtuous behavior. Thus, stories about heroes have been meant to not only entertain, but also educate, to teach what the thoughts, words, and actions of heroes are through examples. However, those examples can either be positive or negative. Remember, although heroes may seem larger and grander than us, they remain relatable characters because they have not only human strengths, but also human weaknesses. If the story seeks to provide models of virtuous behaviors through positive examples, then the hero's strengths tend to create what we would call a heroic character arc for that character. That is, things tend to get better to arc upward for them over the course of the story. If the story seeks to provide models of virtuous behaviors through negative examples, then the hero's weaknesses tend to create what we would call a tragic character arc for that character. That is, things tend to get worse to arc downward for them over the course of the story. The second and third crucial concepts to consider when reading stories about heroes are related: control and choice. The stories of heroes often reflect the beliefs of the culture that created them in terms of control. In some stories, the hero does have control over his or her destiny. That is because the culture that created his or her story may have believed that an individual's choices are not limited by the gods, by fate, by social class or caste, etc. However, in some stories, the hero does not have control over his or her destiny. That is because the culture that created his or her story may have believed that an individual's choices are limited by the gods, by fate, by social class or caste, etc. In almost all stories in which the hero does have control, there is not only an external battle, but also an internal battle for him or her to fight. That battle is related to a crucial choice that the hero must often make between living a long but unheroic life or living a short but heroic life. If the character makes the choice of a long but unheroic life, the consequence is that he or she will not be remembered. However, if the character makes the choice of a short but heroic life, he or she will be remembered. Almost always, the hero cannot live forever, but the hero's fame can live forever. One last crucial concept to consider when reading the stories of heroes is balance, specifically between the desires of the individual and the needs of his or her community. Often, the hero's choice is related to this balance, as the hero must decide if he or she is willing to risk losing his or her life as an individual against the reward of saving the life of his or her community. If the hero is willing to risk individual death, then often he or she is rewarded with lasting fame. If the hero is not willing to risk individual death, then often he or she is not rewarded with lasting fame. Note that the hero does not necessarily need to die, he or she just needs to be willing to take that risk. So, to review, our 4 crucial concepts to remember when reading stories about heroes: look for models of virtuous behavior, look for cultural beliefs about control, look for internal battles over choices between heroic lives and unheroic lives, and look for attempts to balance the desires of the individual against the needs of the community.